Hello. So today's video is entitled Cultural Dexterity. And cultural dexterity is a term used to show that you're flexible, that you're open, and that you're accepting and reasonable about different people's culture. Whether the difference between you and somebody else is age, gender, ethnicity, height, weight, rural versus metropolitan. I don't know what else there is. Uh, Preference in music, what decade you were born in, raised in. I literally have had people between the ages of 0 and 30 read this thing on my wrist and say, I don't get it. 911 memorial? Like, for everybody who calls 911, they don't understand what September 11th is about. 9/11. It just seems like so far away at times, but to not know what 9/11 stands for, it it really shows you um, that you get a lot of great opportunities to help people between 0 and 30 know what happened on 9/11 and how strong we are to stick together as a nation. One nation under a groove. So anyway, I'm just messing around now, but here's the video, Cultural Dexterity. All right. Hi everybody, so welcome, and this is a video on cultural dexterity. Dexterity of course, Dexterity of course means flexibility, and when you incorporate the term cultural and you use it, it means that you are flexible to different cultures and different ways of thinking. And yeah, it just makes you the type of person that has a growth mindset. And so this is all Folsom, and I was there. And from there, I got moved to New Folsom, where I was on a layover on my way to Pelican Bay the first time. And there's just something historic and classic about this. And believe me, you don't, there is no place other than like the military, college, um, campuses, wherever there's a mix of people, prisons. There's just no better tools than you can have than interpersonal communication, cultural dexterity, um, and adaptability. And that's what this one's about. And are my father, my mother, this is me, and this is my sister who's 3 years older, who I've mentioned in a few videos. Back then they used to have La Cinco y Diez, the 5 and 10, the 5 and dime, Ben Franklin, which is, I guess, the equivalent now of the dollar store. Here's me, yeah, in second grade, third grade. But yeah, when I was growing up, like in juvenile hall, at school it was MRFF, mental retarded freckle face, and in juvenile hall I picked up the moniker Mad Magazine because they said I looked like Alfred E. Newman. Because this is kind of still the way I look by the time I went to juvenile hall the first time. And people change when you're not looking. So often 2 to 3 generations pass before the most challenging symptoms of trauma show up in individuals, families, and communities. Cultures go through a grief process similar to individual trauma. So always remember that and kind of stay, keep heed of that trauma may skip a few generations. And so you have to understand cultures too, because if you don't know the culture you're working with, you may be wanting to talk about things that these people really don't want to talk about, but yet their parents may, their grandparents may want to, or these people don't want to talk about it, but their children do, kind of like that. And so you have to always be aware of them. You have to be culturally dexterous. This is me at Robert K. Myers, right here. And this was the superintendent. He was retiring, and all of these gentlemen here are my friends, and a lot of them, life in prison. Some have passed away. I can just tell you that this guy was one of my best friends, Danny, and here we are having a cake for Mr. H during his retirement at Robert K. Myers Youth Center, and it was my second time there. Yeah, I was there twice, and yeah, it's a place where I use cultural dexterity a lot. And so this is a picture of the entire dorm that I was in. There was 2 dorms of this many people in each dorm. This is Mr. Brown. He passed away 2019, and he was the probation officer that was out there. And Pat Aldrich, Mel Barbola are the ones who taught me about weightlifting and understanding how it's not something you do to hurt people, but it's something you do for better health. This is Preston School of Industry. Preston School of Industry was where I was at the California Youth Authority. By the time I was housed there, they didn't use this old castle anymore to house people. It still looks like that. They've had some renovations, but in the bottom, the basement way back here, that's where you went and you did a rack program, Tamarack, but yeah, people aren't housed in the castle anymore. These are a few shots. The institution was all in the back, built better dorms. They had dorms with running water and all that good stuff. This was more of a tourist attraction. But the basement of it was remodeled, and that's where they had Tamarack. And that's where you would go do long-term, 6 months in isolation. And I was actually in Tamarack. So yeah, I can tell you about it. And it resembled the Shawshank Redemption, like those cells, because it was all brick and it was all old and a lot like the old prison dungeons were. This is me in costume. Here's the town I grew up in. The tattoo represents a prison tower with a girl and a clown face, because pretty much if you were locked up and you had a girl, you were pretty much being played, because she was not waiting for you. She was talking to other people and stuff. So this was just a way of acknowledging, like, I know it, I accept it, and so this is the way I chose to live anyway. And then the comedy tragedy, and then here you can see the tracks from when I was an IV drug user, and I was actually removing the ink with all the times I'd inject. And then here is just a picture of a Mexican outlaw, and then this represented my 3 daughters. There's 1, 2, and then there's another girl on this side. I had a number here, had a spider here, because I used to shoot up in the neck. Yeah, I used to inject heroin and cocaine mixed, or one or the other by itself, into my neck. The spider web, back when I was growing up in the 20th century, in the 80s, a spider web, if you had it tattooed on you, it meant you had done time, because you know how cobwebs accumulate over time. So that's what a spider web meant back then. And so this was an indication that the time had got to my head, so that's why I put it there. And this was me, that little boy you seen in the pictures, and the guy you see in front of you today with the hair to the side and everybody at ease. And you've seen me in my videos where I'm just me. And I worked really hard to get back to being able to feel comfortable in my own skin. But this is what I had learned, which is to be stoic and not show any emotion to anybody ever. And this is how I looked when something good was happening, something bad was happening, something was about to happen. I got a letter, didn't get a letter, was getting out, getting in. This is it. In fact, this is my picture at the DMV, and I was really like this, so I'm gonna try to show you how I was. Even though I look like this is how I looked. This is what I thought I was reflecting. Because I had been out 2 days, and I was like, yes, I just did 5.5 years, I've been out 2 days. But I really was flexing all my face muscles to give you that smile, but this is all that was coming out. And these are some of the tattoos I got removed. And the reason it says getting in costume is because if you've seen my video, High Water Spider-Man, I talk about, there's this saying in mental health, emotional, social therapy, about that you are a mask. You pretend you're to be someone you're not. And so in High Water Spider-Man, the video, I elaborate to a group that I'm doing that the way I grew up, I not only just wear a mask, I wore the whole costume. Because even though I was that little boy in the picture that you've seen, I had to wear the mask and I had to put on the whole costume so you wouldn't hurt me, so you'd stay away from me. And I really believe that is still the case today, that people wear masks and some other people wear masks and costumes, but only very few people know their true hearts and their nature, and it's not always bad. So yeah, this is a fixed mindset. So again, in the video growth mindset, I talk about having a fixed mindset. And so a fixed mindset is pretty much, if you look at me here, I've been out of prison. I got out and I weighed 130 pounds. So now I've been out a year and a half. My first 6 months out I was using. So now I have a year and a half that I've been out and a year clean. And now I weigh like 150, 155. And if you look at me, it's just like tattoos and everything. There's nothing wrong with this in my head. It's just like, okay, I'm clean, I'm sober, and I have a job. So my mind was fixed on that's all you needed, rather than where I'm at today, where it's a lot different, where the growth mindset is, okay, maybe the tattoos aren't appropriate, and maybe I shouldn't be so happy about being out and being clean and being sober and having a job and not being incarcerated anymore. But what people see is this guy looks like a gangster and he's happy and proud of it. But I wasn't. It wasn't the outside that I was proud of, it was the inside changes that I had made at that point. And this is an overshot of Pelican Bay State Prison. So really quick, they have level 1 yard, which is over here, which is like the dairy. They work outside. If you did a parole violation, a DUI, things like that. Because people have the misconception when you say you've been to Pelican Bay that you were in Pelican Bay in the security housing unit, the SHU program, where all the triple OGs were that have been locked up since the 60s and 70s and so on. And it's not true. Just because you say you've been at Pelican Bay, you could have been at level 1. And a level 1 never got into the institution. They were out here and they were working, doing the lawn and the parking lots and painting. They weren't in there. Then here is these are level 3 and 4s. And so this is A yard and B yard. And that, in those, yeah, that's where they had riots and they killed a lot of inmates. The guards and the inmates killed a lot of inmates. But here you slept in a cell at night and during the day you were out functioning, but it was pretty high level, pretty intense people in A and B yard, but that's what you would call general population. And then here, what you see here, this right here, this X, no windows, no nothing. This is the security housing unit. This is when you hear about Pelican Bay, where they send the most violent offenders, where they send people to keep them away from people in prison, because people in prison are like, these guys are hurting everybody, and administration knew that. So this is where they put us, and this is where I was at. I was in C facility the first time I went to Pelican Bay, and then I got out, and when I went back to Pelican Bay, I went through law school, Corcoran, and then I went back, I went to D facility. So this is the SHU program, this is the part of Pelican Bay. So when somebody says they were in Pelican Bay, you know, whether it was a week, a month, or 20 years, it's not necessarily saying that you were in the SHU program. And then there's a lot of people in the SHU program that are there and aren't violent or anything. They just have certain charges on them that's the only place they could really put them, where nobody could get them. But 5 things for So 5 things for optimal cultural dexterity would be cognitive restructure, which means you have to restructure the way you think. So you can't hate everybody and be bored by everything and don't like that music, and I'm not going to wear that shirt, and I'm not going to comb my hair that way, and I'm not going to wear those pants, and I'm not going to work as a counselor, because you've heard me say in other videos, to me being a counselor was like working with the cops. I thought I only could work construction, you know, but cognitive restructure is understanding that you don't have to live the way you're living and be the way you're being. You actually have the opportunity to change that. And this happens through good counseling, good therapy, good 12-step programs if you have a good sponsor. A corrective experience. So many things have went wrong in somebody's life, and if you've watched my videos all the way back, or if this is your first one, pretty much I experienced a lot of trauma, PTSD, adverse childhood experiences, adverse adult experiences, and so you need a corrective experience sometimes. And to me, I got corrective experiences when I started removing my tattoos. Another corrective experience was when I paid off all my child support. And another corrective experience was when I got my driver's license the first time. So you have to. So you can't just get out and just say, I'm just going to stay away from everybody, and I'm not going to, you know, use the hard drugs, and I'm just going to get a job. You know, first of all, like I've said in other videos, you're isolating, so that's not good. We're herd animals as human beings, but you need corrective experiences, and you cannot get corrective experiences without restructuring the way you think, your cognition. Then from there comes the growth mindset, like, hey, I like the way it felt to get my license. Hey, I like the way it felt to get a better job. Hey, I like the way it felt that now when I drive and you can't see any tattoos on my hands or my neck or my face, I'm not being, you know, profiled by law enforcement and pulled over. And when I walk into a store, I'm not seeing all the undercover security people following me around the store like I'm gonna steal, because that's what happened. I used to complain about everywhere I go, man, every store I go to, like, they're always in there following me around. What's their problem? And it's funny, I used to always talk about getting pulled over when I had a tank top on, because I still had tattoos. I got my driver's license after I was out 3 years, and I started removing my tattoos at like 2 years and 10 months out. So, you know, I still had tattoos. I was clean and sober, had a job. I was here, but I still had the tattoos. And I was complaining, and I was bringing it up a lot to people that, you know, why are people singling me out? And, you know, it's a tough lesson, and you're going to have to learn this if you don't learn it already, but you are going to be treated the way you look, the way you act, the way you sound. And it's not a fair world. It's a biased world. There's a lot of biases. And compared to who I used to be, you know, I used to think people should be glad I'm not the way I used to be. I'm working. I'm not addicted. And I have a driver's license. Why are they still following me in stores? Why are they pulling me over when they see somebody with tattoos? But you know, the funniest thing happened, the most incredible thing happened, the most amazing thing happened was when all the tattoos were gone, I never got pulled over again or followed in a store. That's my personal experience, and I like that. I can go anywhere I want, and people aren't hitting me up. I'm not getting pulled over, I'm not getting followed. And like I said, it's just the way that we live. This is the world we live in. So you have to understand, be situationally aware. And back in the day, we used to say, you need to get with the program, man. And so you need to get with the program. However you functioned before, whether you were in an institution or a relationship or a university or the military or, you know, prison, you had to get with the program or you were gonna, you know, get left behind, you were gonna get kicked out, you were gonna get, there were gonna be consequences, so you got with the program. And nothing has changed, you know, whether you were in one of those situations, military, incarcerated institution, university dorms, whatever. Even if you were in a family that did it a certain way, now that you're out on your own, you know, you just have to understand you got to get with the program. And this is life on life's terms, man. So next comes emotional agility. You know, you have to be like, you see the running backs and you see those guys like Michael Jordan he had a really good dexterity and agility. And, you know, you have to have that emotionally. So you can be like, wow, I just got paid and all happy, and then you get home and there's a bill, and it's just like, you have to be able to, you know, okay, I just got paid and I got enough to pay this, I don't have to worry about it, and I knew the bill was coming, it was just a matter of time. And you do things like that, or you come in and there's a misunderstanding from what you see and you yell. You're in your home, you're married, living with your family, whatever, and you yell, you get upset because you misunderstood it. Then somebody says, you're like this emotionally, and somebody says, hey, no, we weren't laughing at you, we were laughing actually about something else. You just happened to walk in the middle of it. You know, it wasn't about you. Sorry that you felt that. You have to be agile enough emotionally to like, okay, my bad. So, hey, how's everybody doing, you know? And then the fifth one, 5 things for optimal meaning the highest, best there is, cultural dexterity, cognitive restructure, corrective experience, growth mindset, emotional agility, and well-briety. So pretty much what that means is there's a lot more to it than sobriety. I used to think, well, if I just get off drugs and alcohol, everything's good. Well, when I got clean and sober, I started remembering a lot of things. Then I had to go to therapy. And then after I went to therapy, I thought, okay, everything's good now, I'm clean and sober, and I've gone to therapy for this issue. And then I found myself in other situations where, you know, I was talking myself into, promising myself into, letting myself into situations just to cry myself out of them later. And I realized that you just can't be sober and you just can't go to therapy for your anger. You need to be well. Well-briety means that you're sober-minded and that you've worked on your inner self, not only your anger, but everything. All your character defects, because they're there. So well-briety is a good word, because there's a term in Alcoholics Anonymous that they say white knuckle sobriety. So see how when I make a fist, my knuckles get white? So pretty much I'm sober, but I haven't drank, and you're just like a miserable, mean, curmudgeon, like no one wants to be around you, but you're like, but I'm sober, and it's like you don't want white knuckle sobriety, you don't want sobriety, you want well-briety. And then this is a pretty good thing. Somebody at work had this, and I really liked it, because it totally gives it to you. For a long time in the 20, see, a lot of the things that I do is I take things that from the 20th century when I grew up in the system, and I tell you what worked and what didn't. And then now that I'm practicing, I'm a practitioner in the 21st century, and I got clean and sober and everything in the 21st century. Also, I can tell you what's working in the 21st century and what isn't, just as I can tell you what worked and what didn't in the 20th century. And so the equality was the big word back then. Then equity came in kind of late 20th century, early 21st century, and equity was used a lot. And you can see it like here, if you give everybody the equal box, everybody's different. This person is struggling and this person's still nothing. Equity, okay, well now this person can see, and now this person can see, right? But you're still needing these. Where liberation is like this fence, this wall, like the Berlin Wall, like the fence, like the border, whatever it is, and not necessarily literally a border or a wall, but what is it? What is it that's keeping you from making friends with people of other colors, ethnicities? What's keeping you from going back to school? What's keeping you from maybe changing your career? What's keeping you from admitting that you're not happy in the relationship you're in, and doing your best to peacefully say, hey, this isn't working and I don't want to live like this anymore? I mean, honestly, we have to remove these fences, these barriers. All this helps because you can still see, you can still be a part of it, you can still enjoy life. But this right here is my example. Right here, this is how I try to live my life today. This fence, this wall represents biases, it represents grudges, it represents memories, it represents a lot of stuff. So I tried my best, therapy, meetings, talking to people, faith-based, to get past that so I can live liberated. And this is just hilarious. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but this is Sisyphus. And in Greek mythology, this is the person that was cursed to roll this boulder all the way to the top of the hill. And when he'd get there, it'd push him all the way back. And he spent his entire, for eternity, doing this. And sometimes that's the way it may feel to you. But you have to be, dexterous. You have to have dexterity. You have to be flexible. And if it feels that way sometimes, just know you're not Sisyphus. Sisyphus happened and that already passed, okay? So he already did that for all of us. So when we feel like we're Sisyphus, we're really not. And when it feels like we're, doing the same thing, getting the same result, not only is that insanity, but sometimes we have to maybe just stop beating a dead horse. And like I said in the previous slide, change a career, change a relationship, change things and get that out of your way, whatever's obstructing your peace and joy. And then growth mindset, 21st century approach is the 20th century blunder was the fixed mindset, compliance mindset. So the 21st century, it's like you will do it or you'll suffer consequences. And this is something that I put together, and I really believe it, and this is the way I function, and that is that a compliance-based system demonstrates an atmosphere of punitive dependence. What does that mean? What that means is the only time you do what you're supposed to do is if your boss is there. Or the only time you do what you're supposed to do is if somebody who's pretty much gonna get you in trouble is around. So a compliance-based system pretty much has all these rules in place, and you have to be able to live your life unsupervised and do the right thing when nobody's looking. That's the way I live today, and I try to impress upon the people I work with through the different slides that I showed you. And there's emotional agility. Again, our emotions are just data, they're not directions. Sometimes we believe because we feel mad that gives us the right to say and do things, but it's not. So thank you, and I really appreciate you continuing to watch the videos, and I leave you with well, Brian. And there you have it, cultural dexterity. Thank you, and like the marquee says in the back, sleep is first aid. Get some rest, or you're gonna end up like Sisyphus, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, which is also called insanity, and it's also called biased, and it's also called um, stubborn. So don't end up like Sisyphus. Get some rest. Very well. Have a good one.